What if a conqueror decided to abandon his own culture? Would you call him weak or brilliant? Almost every conqueror in history followed the same logic. You win the war, then you make everyone else become like you. The Romans did it, the Mongols did it, nearly every empire did it. But 1500 years ago in China, one emperor made the opposite choice, and that choice ultimately changed the course of an entire civilization. His name was Tuoba Hong. History knows him as Emperor Xiaowen. He came from the Yur, a true steppe conquering tribe. His ancestors rode horses, shot arrows, and carved out a kingdom in northern China. But after he took the throne, he issued an order that shocked everyone around him. From now on, the nobles must adopt Chinese surnames. They could no longer speak their native language at court, they could no longer wear their traditional clothing, and the capital would move from the steppe frontier to the ancient Chinese city of Luoyang. In other words, he ordered the ruling class to abandon their own identity. Before we go further, ask yourself this: how does a person become capable of a decision like that? What turns a Xianbei emperor into someone willing to do what even Han Chinese emperors never dared? The answer begins in childhood. Emperor Xiaowen was 6 years old when he took the throne. 6. A child who didn't yet understand what power meant, placed on the throne of the Northern Wei. The person who raised him, who truly shaped him, was his grandmother, Empress Dowager Feng. She was Han Chinese. She educated this young emperor in Han culture, Han classics, Han ritual and philosophy. Picture that scene. A little Xianbei boy, every day studying Confucius, learning the ceremonies and systems of the very civilization his ancestors had conquered with bows and arrows. He grew up living between two worlds. Xianbei blood, Han education, steppe pride. Central Plains wisdom. That split identity didn't break him. It gave him a vision no one else around him could see. He saw that conquest and governance are two completely different things. In the year 490, Empress Dowager Feng died. Emperor Sute I began to rule alone. The empire he inherited looked powerful on the surface. Underneath, it was full of fractures. A deep divide ran between Xianbei nobles and Han officials. The Xianbei said, "We are the conquerors. Our rules are the rules." The Han said, "You are barbarians. You will never earn real legitimacy." Two groups, same land, completely different worlds. Tax revenues were unstable. Local rebellions kept erupting. The empire was a ship taking on water. Emperor Xiaowen knew that without change, it would sink. But the change he chose, no one saw it coming. Now let's talk about the moving of the capital. This is the most brilliant scene in the entire reform. The moment where Emperor Xiaowen's political intelligence is fully revealed. He knew that if he announced the move directly, the 6 nobles would rise up in opposition. So he used a strategy. He declared a military campaign to the south and led his armies out in force. When the army reached the area near Luoyang, heavy rain began to fall. The roads turned to mud. The soldiers were exhausted. Emperor Xiaowen gathered his ministers and said, "We continue the campaign south." The ministers looked at each other. Then someone spoke up in opposition. Emperor Xiaowen listened calmly. Then he said, "Very well. If you are unwilling to continue the campaign, then we will establish the capital here in Luoyang." The ministers froze. They had been objecting to the military campaign, not agreeing to move the capital. But the emperor's logic was clean. Either keep marching or accept Luoyang as the new capital. Two choices. Pick one. The army was already on the road. Turning back would look like cowardice. And so the move was decided right there in the rain. No long court debates, no time for opposition to organize. Luoyang became the new capital of the Northern Wei. This was not just a change of location. It was the symbolic declaration of an entire new order. But the story wasn't finished. The most dramatic moment came from inside Emperor Xiaowen's own family. His crown prince, Tuoba Shun, refused to accept the reforms. This young man secretly wore senbei clothing in private, refused to speak Chinese, and stirred up resistance among the nobles. When Emperor Xiaowen found out, he was silent for a long time. Then he made a decision. No one could believe. He ordered the execution of his own son. Sit with that for a moment. Not a political enemy, not a foreign threat. His own son. The child he had raised with his own hands. Some called it ruthless. But look at it differently. When a man is willing to sacrifice his own son for his vision, what does that tell you about the depth of his conviction? After that moment, every noble who had been quietly resisting understood something. This emperor was not performing reform. He meant it. Now let's bring this into the present. Imagine you are the CEO of a company that just acquired a competitor 3 times your size. Your culture? Fast, aggressive, flat structure. Their culture? Hierarchical, process-driven, tradition-focused. You have 2 options. Force them to adopt your culture, or give up part of your own and build something new between the 2. Most leaders choose the first option. It feels like victory. But psychological research tells us this approach usually fails. Why? Because culture cannot be changed by command. When a group feels its identity is under threat, it doesn't comply. It resists. This is what cognitive dissonance theory explains. When a person's actions conflict with their self-image, they don't change. They double down. They protect who they believe themselves to be. Emperor Xiaowen understood this. So he didn't try to argue or persuade. He used commands, actions, and irreversible facts to break the deadlock. The capital was moved. There was no going back. The names were changed. They couldn't be unchanged. When change becomes irreversible reality, people begin to adapt rather than resist. This is not just ancient political wisdom. It is the psychological mechanism behind every successful organizational transformation today. The most powerful leaders are not those who impose their will on others. They are those who have the ability to redefine who we are. Emperor Xiaowen died at 33. He never saw the full results of what he had built. After his death, the conservative faction pushed back. Parts of the reforms were reversed. The Northern Wei split apart. But the seeds he planted did not die. The fusion of Senbei and Han continued to deepen after him. That fusion became the cultural foundation of the Sui and Tang empires. The Tang dynasty, which many historians consider the most glorious era in Chinese history, carried simple blood in its imperial family. Its openness, its tolerance, its capacity to absorb different cultures, all of it grew from the collision of the northern and southern dynasties. So, in a way, the glory of the Tang did not begin with Tang. It began with a young emperor standing in a palace hall in the rain, ordering his own people to abandon the customs of their ancestors. In that moment, it looked like weakness. In the long arc of history, it was one of the most calculated acts of power ever made. Emperor Xiwen didn't just leave us a piece of history. He left us a question about identity and strength. Each of us, at some point, faces a version of the same choice. When you enter a new environment, a new company, a new country, a new relationship, do you hold tightly to who you were? Or do you allow yourself to be transformed? Most people call that kind of change losing yourself. Emperor Xiaowen called it ruling. So here is the question I want to leave you with. Is there something in your life right now that you are holding on to, not because it serves you, but because letting it go feels like a betrayal of who you are? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not to conquer the world around you. It is to let the world change you. Let me know in the comments. Do you think emperors are weak or brilliant? And has there ever been a moment in your life when changing yourself turned out to be the strongest thing you ever did?